Since we were doing it one or two songs at a time, I think once I heard the first two songs and what Ben did with them, that would kind of probably inspire. Like I'd take those two songs and say, what would sound good with those two songs? What does it need now? And so the next two songs would somehow complement those, and then that kind of chain would go all the way down till we were finished. So there wasn't some big blueprint from the beginning of what we wanted kind of the range of sounds to be, but as it grew, the previous songs would inspire the next songs, I think. Sanctuary Heights was the last song we worked on, and we were kind of wanting one more upbeat song for the album. And we had been working on a cover song that wasn't quite working, but the sound palette was good, and so we readjusted that instrumental, and it turned into Such Great Heights. And then it was funny because once we kind of made the demo version of it, right away we're calling it the hit from the album because it just felt like it was even more poppy than the rest of the album. I mean, the little beeping sounds at the beginning of Sanctuary Heights were just some version of one of the sounds on the K2000, I think, with probably a delay pedal added to it. Yeah, I mostly just had a K2000 sampler synthesizer at the time, and it was pretty powerful for back then. I had like a outboard kind of hard drive, and so it actually had a decent amount of sample time that I could use on it. I mean, it was probably just only a couple of minutes maximum of sample time you had per song. And I was just controlling it with my computer through MIDI. I wasn't recording audio tracks into the computer that much. So it was really just, I had 8 channels on the K2000 that I could use to make the instrumentals. But yeah, I used a lot of the K2000 sounds, just mutated versions of them.
I'm thinking it's a sign that the freckles in our eyes are mirror images, and when we kiss they're perfectly aligned. I have to speculate that God himself did make us into corresponding shapes like puzzle pieces from the clay. True, it may seem like a stretch, but it's thoughts like this that catch my troubled head when you're away, when I am missing you.
Yeah, I think by the time we were working on Such Great Heights, I was really leaning into first thought, best thought. Such Great Heights is probably one of the most, if not the most happy, positive songs that I've ever written. In my own writing, I'd often shied away from kind of trying to write something like Such Great Heights. At the time, I was seeing this woman who I had had a crush on for like a very long time, for like years. It was kind of like one of those like people that you would see them around town, or you would be out and about, and we were friends. There was nothing going on at the time, but I'd always kind of pined for secretly. And we started dating, and I just became this like just mushy. It allowed me to write something as mushy as Such Great Heights. It wasn't a relationship that really lasted very long at all. And, it became very clear pretty quickly that we were not compatible. But in kind of the early mid-20s kind of big feelings place where I was at that time, I just found myself like reacting to what Jimmy sent me with like, oh, this is 100% just an unabashed love song. There's nothing, we're not going to try to do anything too heavy with this. It's not going to be a super deep sentiment or anything like that. It just kind of lent itself so well to a positive affirmation of love as a lyric. It didn't seem that there was really anything else that could kind of fit there. And also I was awash with feelings for this person that I wanted to write something for them. And it just so happened to coincide with Jimmy sending me the music that would become Such Great Heights.
You are out there on the road,
It's a lyric that I've often felt pretty self-conscious about because it is such a unique outlier in my catalog of work at this point. There might be a couple, 2 or 3 songs like it or that express similar sentiments in the last 25 years of writing music. So it's an even stranger phenomenon that became, if there was a hit on the record, it became the hit, not in any kind of traditional sense. It wasn't like burning up the Billboard charts or something, but in this alternative world of indie rock kind of coming into its own. And I think what was interesting about that time in 2003, 2004 is that indie rock kind of had its moment where it kind of bled as far into the mainstream as it was ever going to get because of the OC or Garden State, or just this kind of reflection point where college rock, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, kind of became the dominant force of like rock and roll for a couple of years, or popular music as it pertains to like guitars and keyboards and stuff like that. Pop music was always its own separate thing. So it was a trip for me to have this song that had become not so much a hit in a Billboard sense of the word, but certainly a hit in the fact that like every coffee shop I walked into, it was playing. Every bar, at some point it came on. Every store I walked into, it was playing. It just became this like ubiquitous piece of music. It was an odd feeling to be on the other side of that, to have been one of the people who created it. Not only that, but for it to be such an outlier in my catalog of work that there's this like very kind of open-hearted, torch song, love song that now is kind of everywhere, in my neighborhood. That was a pretty wild thing to experience.
It's really mysterious, especially because after all this time, I don't remember any struggle with making the album. It seemed so just come out as a fully fledged album. It feels like such a personal and small lo-fi album that it's pretty weird that somehow it translated to so many people. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to like what Ben did to it, and his voice on it is what really pulled people in, I think. Even now when I listen to it, it still sounds so homemade.